Hi guys. So for my discussion leader for this project, I'm covering pages 108 to 148. And I'm going to start off by reading the questions that I have. Okay, so my first one is, were you guys surprised when Bud drove away with the car? Because I definitely was taken by surprise. At first, did you guys believe that Lefty was like truly trying to help Bud, or if he was like a good person or a bad person? Do you think the cops had any idea that Lefty was hiding like the flyers in his car, or they were just like stopping everyone? And how do you think Herman is going to react to Bud when he tells him that he is his father? We can go ahead and start with Kinsey for the summarizer.
Okay. So I'm kind of going back to the last chapters, but Bud was hiding in a bush, and then Lefty came up and saw him in the bush and whistled to call him out. And then he drove off in the car. And luckily he didn't know how to drive the car pretty much. And so he was able to catch up with him. And then he finally took him back to Flint, and they slept at his daughter's house. And he pretended to be asleep so that he could listen to what they were saying. But he woke up when they were talking about breakfast. So Lefty's daughter made breakfast, like pancakes and sausage and stuff for them. And then her children were asking him a whole bunch of questions and asked him about his mom and his dad. And then Bud told Lefty that Herman Calloway was his dad, and turns out that Lefty knows him and that he's a popular guy. And then so Lefty sent a telegram telling Herman that Bud was with him and that he would return at 8 o'clock. And so Bud was worried about the telegram. And then they finally are headed to Grand Rapids, and they get pulled over by a police officer and says that they are looking for people that are doing something with the railroad tracks. Can't exactly remember. But
the union.
Yeah, the union. And he tells Bud to hide the flyers underneath him. And then once the officer lets them go, he tells him to open the package, and he sees the flyers and notices that he's with them and trying to create a union. And then they end up getting there, and he makes them a deal that he has to go inside and then come back out to get a suitcase. And then finally Lefty goes in and sees the band or whatever and accuses Herman of being his dad, and that's what's left.
Okay, Kate, do you want to go ahead and do the word wizard?
Yeah, I sure will. Okay, some of these they're more like a phrase, because I didn't know if people would quite understand them. Like pick up your dukes or put up your dukes, and that was on page 121. So I looked up that term because to me it means to fight. But when the terminology got started, it had something to do with the Duke of Windsor and his fingers. And then the American slang version of it brought it into to fight, to put up your fist. So it started off as something to do like washing your fingers or something. And the American slang developed it into put up your dukes or to fight. The other one was Pullman men, or the red caps. And these were gentlemen, and they were all African-American that were hired by Mr. Pullman, who started his own little organization for trains. They were separate from the train, and they were his company, and they're all African-American men. They were either called red caps or Pullman men, and they worked the train as servers or bed makers. That's what that word was used for. And it referred to African Americans only. Then there was on page 129, lick and that means to defeat someone. I'm not reading the sentences. Do you guys want me to? I sure can, or I can just go ahead and define the words. I'll just define the words then.
Yeah, I think it's whatever.
And then there
whatever
was, yeah, there was doggone. I always thought, doggone. I didn't realize that meant damn it. Or, I mean, to me, I just say it in passive, like fun, but it's supposed to be a bad word, like damn it or darn it. And you're supposed to be really mad when you say it. Well, I don't use it that way. So I'll just start saying corn dog instead of doggone. That'll solve that problem. All right, guys, those are my 4. Well, I didn't know it was bad, but back in the day, it was like a cuss word or a curse word. Yeah, I'll just say corn dog, not doggone. So those are my 4 words.
Hannah, is your thing muted?
I did mute it because sometimes my kids get loud and I don't want
Oh, okay.
anybody else. They're quiet
Gotcha.
right now, but just in case.
Okay, we can go ahead and do, Erin, do you want to do the connector?
Sure. The first I did 2.
Sure.
Are you laughing?
Corn dog. Go ahead.
Corn dog.
I'm laughing with you. I don't laugh at anyone. Go ahead.
Okay. The first thing
I'm sorry, but you look like a puppet behind your couch.
this room is
You
such
look like a
mess. Do
puppet.
not look at anything. There. Quit looking
Okay,
at
go
me.
ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So the first thing that came to my mind with the connector was right when the chapter started with the car incident. When I first started driving, had an incident like that where I was taking my sisters to school and I was in my dad's truck and we were coming to a stop sign and it was kind of sputtering like it was going to die, and then it just lurched forward into another car. So I totally felt his pain with the lurching of the vehicle, because that's no bueno. But with the whole chapter or the whole readings, I thought, he got caught in a pretty big lie, saying that he's my dad, and the fact that, was it Mr. Lewis knew who he was? He was probably not expecting that. And he was thinking, oh no, what am I going to do? I think a lot of kids probably over exaggerate things. I've read stories where the other day we were talking about fears with the little ones, and they had said, I said, well, I'm kind of afraid of planes, but and this little kindergarten said, yeah, I went in a plane, I jumped out of it. And I'm like, no, you didn't. So I think stories get told and these kids don't realize that you can tell if they're telling the truth or not. So, but he's kind of caught in a pretty big story here, and I'm excited to see how that's going to play out. So that's kind of how I connected, is his truth exaggerated to what goes on in children's lives is probably exaggerated to some form, either for the better or for the worse. So that's how I connected the two.
Don't you think didn't he think fast on his feet though? I know it's a book, but it seems like he came back all the time with something. Whenever Lewis would ask him a question, he'd have an answer. It might be another lie, building on the lie, but he always had something to answer back with. And I think that might be a part of the runaway thing, maybe.
He kind of asked him a lot of questions too, like he always has an answer.
Yeah, he did.
I think
even if it's just yes sir.
With the like what you were talking about, some of your questions about how did he come up with those list of rules? Like he's been on the by himself for 4 years, and so I think he developed that list, as a survival tactic.
I just want to know how he remembers all them dang things.
All the corn dog things.
Okay, it's
doggone
a book, corn dog. It's a. I keep looking like, okay, it's kind of like a cartoon. It is a book, and it is fictional, so you can just write whatever you want to write. But and maybe that was his comfort thing too, that he had that type of trying to remember maybe what his mom had told him or something. And maybe that's what the rules were. Hannah, what's the rules about? You read the whole book. What's it?
Hey, we're gonna
Spit it
have
out.
to just read.
All right, Hannah, do you want to do?
Oh, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, so I did like a collage that I drew, and in here
Oh, that's cool.
is Bud looking into the it's like a collage that like
His
I
house.
brought Bud into it, and so when he walked into the club, sorry, my older daughter took my baby out of here.
I agree.
But when he went into the log cabin, was that the name of it? I can't remember.
Yeah, the log
Club.
cabin.
He saw the men
Mhm.
around, and so like I kind of know a little bit about the men,
Oh, cool.
and so I found pictures of people that reminded me of how I pictured those characters. You've got the trumpet player, the fiddle player, which is Herman Calloway, the drum player, the sax player, and the piano player. So, and I did like white because I wanted it to kind of look smoky, because when you walk into like a bar, you're walking into a smoky area. So, and then I just have Bud kind of peeking in.
Mhm.
Your guys' illustrations are blowing mine out of the water.
What's that?
Your guys' illustrations are blowing mine out of the water.
Well, I was
Okay, so-
gonna do more, but
Take
like for me,
Take an
this was the
art
biggest-
course.
Yeah, I think the reason I chose this is for me, like, again, since I read it, like, I know, like, this is kind of when the story takes a different turn. And so, like, for me, this is a pivotal point in the story when he walks into the bar, because it changes a lot of things for him.
How much time do we have left?
What's that?
How much time do we have left?
Oh, plenty. It's 45 minutes, but
Oh.
but we won't use all that time, I'm sure.
Okay, I just want to talk about the questions a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, so we were obviously all in shock when he drove the car away. Like, what are you doing? I would say. Did you think Mr. Lewis was like, were you guys first thinking that he was a good guy, or were you kind of worried for Bud?
I was worried.
I was too. Like just someone random stopping to pick him up.
And I thought for sure he was just going to take him right
I
back
wasn't-
to home.
I kind of was worried a little bit until he offered him something to eat and then
Yeah.
was coaxing him out. Then I thought, well, and he was also black. And I thought, yeah, I think this is going to be okay.
Do you think that the cops were pulling everyone over, or that they had a suspicion?
I think it was probably anyone black that was driving,
Yeah.
most likely.
Black. I agree.
Racially
I agree.
profiling people.
Well, and
And,
didn't he have out of county tags too, or something like that? That maybe they would have put two and two together that way because he was black and had out of county tags. That's what I
I
thought.
don't know. Were tags the
too.
thing then? Like it.
Yeah.
I don't-
I would assume they would have to have tags of
Yeah.
some sort.
I thought he asked
Good
where he was
question.
from, though. Like when he pulled him over, he asked him where he was from, didn't he?
I can't remember.
I can't either because I know he got out of the car and went back to the
Can't either.
cop. Didn't he?
Yeah, I found that kind of strange.
Don't do that.
Also,
Where is it?
Hannah already knows the answer to this, but I'm kind of scared to see how Herman reacts when Bud says, "You're my dad and I know it."
Yeah, me too.
Well, he was an old man. Did he have a heart attack? Did he have a heart attack? I don't know. But he was a musician, and they traveled all over. He could have had kids from here to, Wisconsin. Who knows?
And near every Hooverville.
There you go. Every Hooverville. Corn dog. I just put that in there.
And he's in front of all his like band members and friends, and he's probably like, "What's happening?" Like get out of
Yeah.
get out of here.
And then it
Probably.
makes you think of like
Okay,
big members think of him.
Mhm.
I'm gonna I'm going to add a little history to this because I looked up the Pullman, and Mr. Lewis, was he a red cap or a Pullman? He had worked for the railroad at one time, and I think I read that. Anyway, the Negroes, as they were calling them, tried to organize that into a union, and that all started in Kansas City, Missouri. Is where that all started to be unionized. And they opened up the Order of the Sleeping Car Conductors, and they were all African American. And I think also that's why I agree that because he was black is why they stopped him for sure, to check to see, because they were actually putting them in jail for trying to organize the black members that were trying to organize it. They were actually getting jail time for that. So the information I looked up read, if they caught him trying to unionize. So
I don't know if he needs to use those flyers soon, but I think it's kind of risky keeping them in his vehicle. You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Were they in the box that said blood? Were they in that box? Were they in the set? So I thought weren't they concealed in that box that said blood on it? Or
I think it was too different because he delivered the blood to the hospital.
Yeah, because when Bud when Bud gets in the car, he goes, "Hey, what happened to your blood?" And he's like, "Oh, I took."
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's like, "You don't remember?"
And also, I want to add something too. When I was I kind of researched the author a little bit, and actually, the two main characters of this book, like the strong men characters, Mr. Calloway and Mr. Lefty, are based off of the author's grandparents, like his grandpas. And his grandpa was a red cap.
That's kind of cool.
The one that's based off of Lefty.
Oh.
Happened in real life.
Oh.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, it was great.
So his grandpa was one of the author's grandfather was one of the organizers.
Yeah,
trying to help organize.
He went by
the union.
Lefty. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, that to me is scary enough. Lefty, hop in a car with somebody named Lefty. Oh, geez. Well, you have to be desperate for a ride.
I think
That's it.
he,
That's all I got to
for
say.
me, like I knew he was good when he started talking about what that sign had said, and like how, like it just showed that he was concerned.
Yeah.
And he didn't like give up on the kid.
Yeah.
He waited there and tried to make sure he was okay. I thought he was gonna kick him out of the car after he drove off with it, though.
Yeah, I didn't think he was gonna continue to help him.
Well, I wondered too if they wouldn't have taken him in as a family member, even the way they treated him almost as a guest within the house.
I thought that's what was going to happen.
The way they treated him.
Yeah,
because I thought when he sent that message, I thought, wow, if Calloway comes back with, I don't know what you're talking about, that ain't my kid, or something like that. I thought, what were they going to do with Bud then? I think they would have been the type of people that maybe would have taken him in. Yeah, I know Hannah knows everything.
I really will say, I hope
corn dog.
Like, yeah, at this point in the book, my hope is that he goes back to that family and gets like, you know, like it's crazy because that first family that they saw at the soup kitchen, I wanted something to happen in that, and it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, he got back together with Bugs, and I was like, oh good, they're gonna have like this adventure together, and then they didn't. And then now he's with Lefty, and I love Lefty, and I was like, I really hope at this point in the story that there's some more interaction there.
Do we know how old Lefty is?
Old enough to be a grandpa because he has grandkids and a daughter who's married.
Okay, well, unless you guys have anything else. I'm finished unless someone has anything else to say.
I'm good. All right, you want me to stop it? Okay.
Sure.
This concludes our recording.